Okay, I would like to start by, first of all, thanking you for being here. Thanks to Marina for the introductory session, or for the introductory words. I'd like to thank you all the members of the audience for making the time and coming to us. I would like to specifically thank the speakers. Most of you come from pretty far away. Some of you come from very far away. And we really appreciate your effort, the fact that you took the time and come to be here with us. I would also like to thank the people who are helping us and supporting us in making this happen. So that is, we've got Joe and his colleague doing the filming. We've got Emmanuel, who is outside probably, manning the desk. We have Margarita, who is, oh no, there's Emmanuel, so Margarita is probably sitting at the desk. But most of all, I would like to thank Tier. Tier is has been the driving force behind this entire event. All of you will have had emails. In some cases, you may have had about 250 emails from her. So without her, this wouldn't have happened. So Tier, thank you very much for putting in the effort and making it happen. So you may ask yourself, why do we have an event which is co-sponsored between Orbit and the HPP? And as Marina has already said, Orbit is there to help integrate responsible research and innovation in ICT, with a particular emphasis at this point on UK and the EPSRC-funded research community. However, that limitation is fairly arbitrary. ICT research is not just done in the UK, it's an international enterprise. And it's also not only done by people who get money from the EPSRC, but it's done by people from all sorts of backgrounds with all sorts of funding. The Human Brain Project has always known that it has to take ethical and social issues seriously, which is why we have a subproject 12 on ethics and society, which is the home for responsible research and innovation in the HPP. So what we're talking about for today and tomorrow are issues, many of which have strong repercussions in the area of responsible innovation. So they have to do with questions of scientific collaboration, with technical collaboration and co-design of technologies, but they also have a lot to do with questions of ethics, of regulation, of compliance with the law, of making sure that what we can do scientifically and technically actually is acceptable and desirable. So these are questions which are squarely in the area of responsible research and innovation, which is where I think Orbit and the HPP have synergies, which is why I'm delighted that we could have this co-organized event here. And of course, one benefit of that is that we have the partners in Oxford, and Oxford, to most people, seems to be a more attractive proposition than Leicester. Now, I'm not entirely sure why that is the case, and all of us who come from Leicester know that there's no truth to that at all, but so it goes. So why are we looking at data governance? Firstly, from my perspective as the ethics director of the Human Brain Project, it's a very pressing, practical issue. We need to deal with it. And the Human Brain Project has always been aware that it has to deal with it, but it's found it, I think, relatively difficult to find practical ways of doing so. So we have to deal with it in many different ways. We have to make sure that the data that the HPP produces is made usable and available to people within the Human Brain Project, but also potentially to people outside the Human Brain Project, to other members of neuroscience research communities who need this sort of data to do their research. The HPP at this point, with its emphasis on the development of an infrastructure, clearly needs to reach out to various research communities outside the HPP, and that involves a lot of questions of data governance. So which data is used in which way, for what purposes, who gets access to it, who can use it for what reasons, and so on. So there are lots of practical issues around this. Many of those are scientific and technical, but many of them are also regulatory, ethical, in the broader social space. A particular challenge that I think we're facing at this point is the collaboration between the various international projects. So we know that it's not just the Human Brain Project in Europe. We've got the US Brain Initiative, we've got the China Brain Project, we've got the Japanese, we've got loads and loads of international projects that look at various aspects of neuroscience. And there seems to be a general agreement that the key to go is collaboration. None of those projects, even the very big ones, like the Human Brain Project or the US Brain Initiative, none of them will be able to crack it on by themselves. there needs to be exchange of data, there needs to be exchange of insights, of theories. So international collaboration is a key aspect for the future progress of neuroscience. But that, from our perspective, raises numerous questions around data governance. So in the Human Brain Project, we've of course not been lazy. We've done lots of things over the last few years. We have developed what we call a data policy manual. We have done this in collaboration between all the sub-projects of the project. So all 12 different sub-projects have contributed to that. We've had it reviewed internally, we've had it reviewed externally. We now have this data policy quick guide, which is sort of the brief extract of that, which we are inviting you to look at. So we've done a lot of stuff, but we by no means have cracked it all. I think there are many, many open questions. My personal interest is on the ethics and the regulatory side of it. And in no way do I want to say that that is the only side of it of importance, and I certainly don't want to limit this meeting here to this, but it's my personal interest, and I would like to see some progress and some debate around this. Now, as part of the work we've done on data governance in the Human Brain Project, we have looked at what other similar or comparable or relevant projects have done. So we've looked at data policies, data governance from a variety of regions, from a large number of projects. And we particularly, so the people in DMU, looked at the ethical side of it. So how is ethics represented in the data governance of various projects? And very interestingly, the short answer is it's not. No, it's not visible. And there's an interesting question of why that is the case. So if you want to look at somebody's data, be it in America, in China, you can often do that. But if you want to understand how they produce that data, for example, if it's animal data, which sort of animal protection standards they adhere to, which I'm sure most of them will have done, probably all of them will have done, but they don't communicate that. It's not normally visible with the data. Now, why is that? My suspicion, which I can't prove at this point, but my suspicion is that it's because of the incentive structures of the scientific system, in particular the neuroscience system. So people get incentivized to publish the data because if they do that and other people use their data, they get cited, and getting citations is what we want. It increases your H index, it increases your overall citation number, which gets you promoted, which is what we all want to achieve. But that is predicated on the assumption that what we've done with the data, the creation of the data, is acceptable and unproblematic. And if anybody wants to use the data, then that's fine. Now, this works perfectly well for individual researchers, and I think it served the neuroscience community quite well over the last few decades. But I think it runs into problems at the point where we actually want to make international collaboration a reality. And this is something that we have encountered in the Human Brain Project, where the ethics reviewers keep coming back to us, so the ethics reviewers from the European Commission keep coming back to us and say, well, how do you know that this piece of data that you want to make available is actually capable of being used for that particular purpose? How do you know that the data was collected in a way that is compatible with European regulation? And the answer that we can give to this is for the data that was generated within the HPP. Well, we know that because we have the PIs in the project. They've given us their approvals. But for anything outside the Human Brain Project, we don't. Often, yes, I'll shut up in a minute. So the problem there is that the current mechanism and the current structure of exchanging data in neuroscience doesn't really work, I think, from my perspective, in the way it should if it is to facilitate international collaboration. And that's why we called this meeting. That's why we try to bring together people from a variety of backgrounds who are active in data governance, in neuroscience, in international collaboration, to firstly exchange our experience, present what we've done in the HPP, but also then hear from you what you're doing, and hopefully for us to learn, with a bit of luck for you to learn something about it, and overall to bring, to move forward the debate, to contribute to the discourse, and to come to a point where these questions are at least better recognized, and that where we have mechanisms of addressing them. So these are the aims of the project. So we would like to invite you to on this journey with us to make sure that the data governance in the HPP works, but also we certainly want to give back to the community. What are we doing? So you've all seen the program. We've tried to make the program interactive. So we have long slots for each speaker, but we don't expect the speakers to speak for the 15 minutes or hour or whatever they have. We would like the speakers to limit themselves to a maximum of 30 minutes, and we would like to then invite debate and discussion to allow us to exchange ideas. Right, so my final point, one aspect that's important to us is we want to share our experience. So this is, on the one hand, what we're trying to do is we're trying to share ideas and exchange discussions here among us, but we also want to make this available to the world at large. Which is why we've invited all the speakers to write a brief summary or full paper or whatever they want, which we would like to integrate into a special issue of the Orbit Journal. So Marina has talked earlier about the fact that the Orbit Journal is a new Platinum open access journal, and we would like to have a special issue around the question of data governance and international collaboration in neuroscience. So I would hope that all the speakers will find the time to write at least a short piece, at least a short summary of what they've done. And of course, if anybody else in the audience would like to contribute, there'll be an open call, and you'll be very much invited to do so as well. And I think the final point, I think you didn't mention this, so we are being filmed as we speak. I think most of the speakers have consented. Thank you very much for that. What we want to do with the films is we want to put them onto the Orbit channel, so we want to make them available to the world at large. Of course, if you haven't consented, that's fine as well, but I think the majority of you have. And we would like to have a few short interviews with members of the audience, both the speakers and the other members of the audience, to get some short snippets on what you think is important, what are key issues. And again, the idea is to make this publicly available and to encourage debate around these questions.